The day I overheard my daughter-in-law plotting in the barn, I knew my family had betrayed me. At Hank's funeral, Tessa's cold words, "She's useless now," cut deeper than grief. I'd raised her husband, Brian, as my own, poured 30 years into this Oregon farm, only to be cast aside like an old tool. That night, I made a vow that shocked even me. I'd fight to keep my home no matter the cost. This is how I turned heartbreak into defiance, proving no one's too old to reclaim their life. I wanted my legacy, but risked losing the only family I had. Could you stand against those you love? Join me to find out. Before we jump in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. If this story's grabbing you, hit that like button to let us know. It was the day of my husband Hank's funeral. The Oregon sky hung heavy with gray clouds, mirroring the weight in my chest. Mourners in black milled outside, their voices a dull hum through the barn's weathered walls. I'd slipped away from the crowd, needing a moment to breathe, to feel Hank's presence in the place we'd built together. The barn smelled of old wood and the faint tang of motor oil, a scent that always brought him back to me. I ran my fingers over a hay bale, its prickly strands grounding me. Then I heard her voice, Tessa, my daughter-in-law, sharp and cold as a winter wind. "Solve the inheritance issue fast," she hissed to my stepson Brian. "She's useless now. I'm moving her to a care facility in the city." My heart stopped. Useless? After all I'd given them? I pressed myself against the wall, the rough wood scraping my palm. Tessa's words were a blade, slicing through 30 years of love and sacrifice. I'd raised Brian since he was 9, bandaged his knees, cheered at his graduations. I'd loved him like my own, though I never bore a child. And now, this betrayal, whispered in the shadow of Hank's grave? My hands trembled, and I tasted salt on my lips, tears I hadn't realized I'd shed. I sank onto a crate, the cold biting through my dress. Memories flooded me. I saw Brian at 10, his small hands clutching a lamb we'd nursed back to health. "You're the best mom," he'd said, his eyes bright. I'd been a veterinarian then, my days filled with healing animals and my nights with building a family. Hank and I poured our souls into this farm, its rolling fields, the lake that sparkled like glass at dawn. It was our legacy, my home, and Tessa thought she could rip it away? Her voice faded as they left the barn, but the sting lingered. I wiped my face, the damp fabric of my sleeve rough against my cheek. Brian hadn't protested. His silence hurt more than Tessa's scheming. Had I been blind to his weakness all these years? I thought of Hank, his gentle laugh, his calloused hands holding mine. He'd trusted me to carry on. I couldn't let Tessa win. As I stood, my granddaughter Claire appeared at the barn door. At 17, she had Hank's kind eyes. She didn't speak, just wrapped me in a hug. Her hair smelled of lavender, a fleeting comfort. "I'm here, Grandma," she whispered. Her warmth steadied me, but questions churned in my mind. What was Tessa planning? How deep did this betrayal run? I stepped outside, the mourners' faces blurring in the dusk. The air carried the faint scent of rain, and the lake reflected a fractured sky. I was a widow, alone but not broken. Tessa thought me weak, a relic to be discarded. She was wrong. I'd uncover her game, protect what Hank left me. But how? What had she already set in motion? How do you measure a life given to others, only to face their silence when you need them most? I stood on the porch of our Oregon farmhouse, the dawn light painting the fields gold, and wondered if my sacrifices for Brian had been for nothing. The air was crisp, carrying the sweet scent of dew-kissed grass, but Tessa's words from the funeral clung to me like damp fog. "Useless," she'd called me. My chest tightened and I gripped the railing, its weathered wood smooth under my palms. I'd raised her husband, my stepson, as my own. I'd built this home with Hank. Had it all been a lie? The farm stretched before me, its fences weaving stories of our past. Each post, each blade of grass, held memories of the life we'd carved from this land. I closed my eyes, and the scent of fresh hay pulled me back to 30 years ago, when Brian first came to us. He was 9, a quiet boy with his father's dark eyes, clutching a worn backpack as Hank knelt beside him. "This is your home now," Hank had said, his voice steady as the lake at noon. I'd been nervous, a veterinarian with no children of my own, but when Brian's small hand slipped into mine, I felt a spark. I'd be his mother. Those early years were a blur of effort and love. I'd rise before dawn, the coffee's bitter tang sharp on my tongue, to tend animals at the clinic. My hands, calloused from years of suturing wounds and delivering calves, would ache as I drove home to cook dinner. Brian's laughter filled the kitchen, his chatter about school a melody I cherished. I remembered one night, moonlight spilling through the window as I helped him with a science project. "You make everything better, Marlene," he'd said, his smile bright as the stars. I'd hugged him, the warmth of his small body grounding me. For him, I'd do anything. Hank was my anchor. We'd sit on this very porch, the creak of the swing a soft rhythm, and plan our future. "You're giving Brian a family," he'd say, his calloused fingers lacing through mine. His encouragement was a fire in my heart. Together we rebuilt the farm, mending fences, planting crops, saving for Brian's future. I'd work late, the clinic's fluorescent lights harsh against my tired eyes, to pay for his college. The paperwork piled high, ink smudging my fingers, but every dollar felt like a promise. Brian would have the life I never did. I opened my eyes, the memory fading like mist. The lake gleamed in the distance, its surface calm but hiding depths I couldn't fathom. Brian had changed. After marrying Tessa, he grew distant, his visits rare. I'd call, my voice echoing in the quiet house, only to hear excuses. "Work's busy," he'd say, his tone flat. I'd blamed myself, wondering if I'd failed him somehow. Now, Tessa's words at the funeral made it clear. She'd turned him against me. But why? What had I missed? I walked the farm, my boots sinking into the soft earth. The distant cowbells chimed, a sound that once meant home but now felt hollow. I passed the barn, its red paint peeling like old wounds. Inside, I'd overheard Tessa's betrayal, her voice slicing through my grief. I thought of Brian's silence, his refusal to defend me. My heart ached, a dull pain that spread to my fingertips. Had I been blind to his weakness? I'd raised him to be strong, to care for others, but Tessa's grip was iron. I pictured her sharp smile, her eyes calculating as she spoke of the care facility. She wanted the farm, our farm. A memory surfaced, unbidden. Years ago, Hank and I had sat by the lake, the water's ripples catching the sunset's glow. "This place is yours, Marlene," he'd said, his voice firm. "No one can take it from you." I'd laughed, brushing off his seriousness, but his eyes held a warning. Had he seen Tessa's ambition even then? I touched the ring on my finger, its metal worn but warm against my skin. Hank had left me more than a farm. He'd left me his trust. I couldn't let him down. I paused by the old oak tree, its branches heavy with spring leaves. Claire had climbed it as a child, her giggles echoing across the fields. She was my light now, the one who saw me, who cared. Her hug at the funeral, scented with lavender, had been a lifeline. But could I lean on her without pulling her into this mess? I traced the tree's bark, its rough texture grounding me. Tessa thought me weak, a relic to be shuffled away. She didn't know the fire in me, the strength forged from years of saving lives, animal and human. The farmhouse loomed behind me, its windows reflecting the rising sun. I'd fought for this place, for Brian, for our family, but doubt gnawed at me. Had I given too much? I remembered a night when Brian was 16, storming out after an argument. "You're not my real mom," he'd shouted, the words a slap. I'd stood in the kitchen, the clocks ticking loud in the silence, and cried. Hank had held me, his flannel shirt soft against my cheek. "He'll come back," he'd promised. Brian had, but the scar remained. Now his silence felt like that night, magnified. I turned back to the house, the porch swing swaying gently in the breeze. The air smelled of earth and possibility, but my mind churned. Tessa's plan was clear. She wanted me gone, the farm hers. Brian's complicity was a wound I couldn't ignore. I'd sacrificed everything for him, but had I built a family or a facade? The lake's calm surface mocked me, hiding truths I needed to uncover. What was Tessa hiding? Why had Brian turned away from me? What do you do when the truth you've been chasing burns worse than the lie you feared? I sat at the kitchen table, the farmhouse silent except for the rain drumming on the windows, and stared at the emails I'd found on Brian's old laptop. Tessa's words glowed on the screen, each one a shard of glass in my heart. She'd been planning to move me to a care facility for months, long before Hank's death. My hands shook, the cold metal of the laptop biting into my palms. I'd raised Brian, loved him like my own, and now he was part of this? The air smelled of damp wood and betrayal, and I wondered how I'd missed the signs. The storm outside mirrored the one inside me. Lightning flashed, casting jagged shadows across the room, and the thunder's low growl seemed to echo my rage. I'd spent days piecing it together, my eyes burning from late nights in the dim glow of the screen. The laptop, forgotten in the attic, had been a last resort. I'd climbed the creaky stairs, dust tickling my nose, and found it buried under old blankets. When I powered it on, Tessa's emails to a care facility in Portland stared back at me. "Marlene's declining," she'd written. "We'll need a room soon." Declining? I was 71, not frail. I cooked my own meals, walked the farm daily, my boots sinking into the earth with purpose. Her lies were a slap, but Brian's replies, short, compliant, were a knife. I remembered Hank's voice years ago by the lake's edge. The water had shimmered under a summer moon, and he'd squeezed my hand, his calluses rough against my skin. "Tessa's ambitious," he'd said, his tone heavy. "Watch her." I'd brushed it off, thinking he worried too much. Now his warning haunted me. Had he seen this coming? I pushed the laptop away, the chair scraping the floor, and stood. My pulse raced, a frantic rhythm that drowned out the rain. I needed answers, not just words on a screen. Tessa and Brian were coming for dinner tonight, their monthly visit a ritual I'd once cherished. Tonight, it would be a reckoning. The kitchen clock ticked, each second sharpening my resolve. I set the table, the clink of plates loud in the quiet. The aroma of roasted chicken filled the air, a cruel contrast to the bitterness in my throat. As I sliced carrots, the knife's weight felt like an extension of my anger. I pictured Tessa's sharp smile, her voice smooth as she'd help me, suggesting I rest, hinting I couldn't manage alone. All lies to pave the way for her plan. And Brian? His silence at the funeral, his failure to challenge her, replayed in my mind. I'd taught him to stand tall, to care for family. Where was that boy now? Headlights pierced the dusk, their beams cutting through the rain. My stomach twisted as their car crunched the gravel drive. I smoothed my apron, the fabric soft but grounding, and opened the door. Tessa swept in, her perfume sharp with citrus, her smile too bright. "Marlene, you shouldn't be cooking in this storm," she said, her tone dripping with false concern. Brian followed, his shoulders hunched, avoiding my eyes. The rain clung to his coat, dripping onto the floor like tears. "Smells good," he mumbled, his voice flat. I nodded, my lips tight, and gestured to the table. The storm's roar outside felt like my heart's own cry. Dinner began in strained silence, the clatter of forks the only sound. I watched Tessa, her movements precise, her eyes flicking to Brian as if directing a play. My fingers gripped the tablecloth, its texture rough under my nails. I couldn't wait any longer. "Tessa," I said, my voice steady despite the fire in my chest. "I found your emails, the ones about the care facility." Her fork froze midair, her smile faltering. The room seemed to shrink, the air thick with tension. Brian's head snapped up, his face pale. "What?" he said, but his voice cracked, betraying him. "Don't play innocent," I said, leaning forward. The rain's rhythm quickened, a drumbeat to my words. "You've been planning to ship me off, to take the farm." Tessa's eyes narrowed, but she recovered fast. "Marlene, you're confused," she said, her voice smooth as silk. "We're worried about you, living alone. It's for your safety." Her lie was a spark to my fury. "Safety?" I snapped, standing. The chair scraped back, loud as a gunshot. "You called me useless. At Hank's funeral, I heard you." Brian flinched, his hands clenching. "Marlene, he started, but Tessa cut him off. "You're imagining things," she said, her tone sharp now. "Grief does that." Her dismissal was a match to gasoline. I slammed my hand on the table, the plates rattling. "I have the emails, Tessa. You wrote them." Brian agreed. The truth hung heavy, and for a moment the storm outside seemed to pause. Tessa's face hardened, but Brian's eyes dropped, his silence louder than any confession. My heart pounded, a drum in my ears. I thought of the nights I'd stayed up for Brian, the sacrifices etched into my bones. "I raised you," I said, my voice breaking as I turned to him. "I gave you everything, and you let her do this?" Brian's mouth opened, but no words came. His betrayal was a weight, crushing the air from my lungs. Tessa stood, her chair tipping back. "This is ridiculous," she hissed. "We're leaving." She grabbed Brian's arm, pulling him toward the door. He followed, head bowed like a puppet on her strings. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. What would you do if you were in my shoes? Share your thoughts in the comments. The door slammed, the sound echoing in the empty kitchen. I sank into a chair, the rain's steady patter my only company. My hands trembled, clutching Hank's photo from the table. Its edges were worn, softened by years of touch. I traced his face, his kind eyes steady, even in memory. I'd confronted them, but at what cost? Brian's silence was a wound deeper than Tessa's schemes. Had I lost him for good? I stood, the floor cold under my feet, and walked to the window. The storm raged, lightning illuminating the farm in stark white. Tessa thought she'd won, that I'd crumble. She didn't know me. I'd fought for this family, this land, my whole life. Her lies had woken something in me, a fire Hank had always seen. I'd protect what was mine, but how? What was Tessa's next move? How do you fight a betrayal that's already taken root in your family? I stood in the farmhouse kitchen, the morning light filtering through the curtains, casting soft shadows on the worn table. The air smelled of fresh coffee, its warmth a faint comfort against the chill of Tessa's schemes. My confrontation with her and Brian had left me raw, their betrayal a wound that pulsed with every heartbeat. But I wasn't done. Tessa thought she could outsmart me, that I'd fade quietly into her plans. She didn't know the strength I'd built over decades, the fire Hank had nurtured in me. I gripped my mug, the ceramic hot against my palms, and vowed to protect my home. The question was how. The farm outside was quiet, the lake's surface a mirror under the pale sky. I walked to the window, my reflection faint in the glass, and thought of Hank. Years ago, we'd stood on this very spot, the grass damp under our feet, planning the farm's future. "You're tougher than anyone I know," he'd said, his voice steady as the earth beneath us. His trust had been my anchor, and I felt it now, urging me forward. I couldn't let Tessa win, not after all we'd built. But her emails, Brian's silence, they were proof of a plan already in motion. I needed to act, to outmaneuver her before she struck again. I sat at the table, the chair creaking under me, and pulled out a notepad. The paper's crisp edges grounded me as I scribbled ideas. Tessa wanted me in a care facility, claiming I couldn't manage alone. Fine. I'd prove her wrong, show the world I was sharp, capable. My heart raced, a mix of fear and determination. I remembered the will, Hank's secret gift, but I couldn't rely on it yet. Not without evidence of Tessa's coercion. I needed allies, a strategy. My eyes drifted to a photo on the wall. Claire, my granddaughter, laughing by the lake. At 17, she was fierce, loyal, the one who'd held me at the funeral. Could I trust her with this? The doorbell rang, a sharp note that jolted me. I opened the door to find Claire, her backpack slung over one shoulder, her hair catching the sunlight like a halo. The faint scent of lavender clung to her, a reminder of her hug in the barn. "Grandma," she said, her voice soft but firm, "I want to stay with you, for good." My breath caught. She stepped inside, her sneakers scuffing the floor, and dropped her bag. "Mom's been talking about you," she said, her eyes narrowing. "She thinks you're weak. I know you're not." Her words were a spark, igniting my resolve. I hugged her, her warmth a shield against the doubt gnawing at me. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice thick. We sat at the table, the notepad between us. The room felt alive, the air humming with possibility. Claire leaned forward, her fingers tapping the wood. "Mom's been calling lawyers," she said, her voice low. "She's trying to prove you can't live alone." I nodded, the memory of Tessa's emails flashing in my mind. "She's building a case," I said, my tone steady despite the anger simmering beneath. "But we'll build a better one." Claire's eyes lit up, and we began to plan. The scratch of my pen was a rhythm, each word a step toward victory. We'd renovate the house, add handrails, a medical alert system, to show I was prepared, not frail. I'd meet with my doctor, get a clean bill of health, and the lawyer, Hank's lawyer, would confirm my rights. Claire grabbed her phone, pulling up designs for home modifications. The screen's glow lit her face, her excitement contagious. "We can make this place perfect," she said, her voice bright. I smiled, but my mind churned. Could we pull this off? Tessa was cunning, her ambition a blade honed by years in real estate. I pictured her in her sleek office, her nails clicking on a keyboard, plotting her next move. My fingers tightened around the pen, the ink's sharp scent grounding me. "We need to be careful," I said, my voice low. "Your mom can't know you're helping me." Claire nodded, her jaw set. "She won't," she promised, her tone fierce. We walked to the study, the floorboards creaking under our steps. I pulled out the farm's old maps, their paper yellowed and musty, and spread them on the desk. The lines traced fields, fences, the lake, our legacy. Claire pointed to the house's layout, suggesting changes. "Handrails here," she said, her finger circling the stairs. I nodded, my heart swelling with pride. She was Hank's granddaughter, through and through, but doubt lingered. What if Tessa found out? What if Brian, weak as he was, warned her? I pushed the thought away, focusing on the maps. The rustle of paper was a whisper of hope, each mark a defiance of Tessa's plans. I called my doctor, the phone's weight heavy in my hand. The receptionist's voice was warm, scheduling an evaluation for tomorrow. Next, the lawyer. His office smelled of leather and old books, I recalled, a place of trust. I'd meet him soon, confirm the will's terms. My chest tightened, a mix of hope and fear. What if Tessa had already swayed someone? I shook my head, the motion sharp. I'd faced worse, sick animals, long nights, grief. I could face her. Claire and I worked late, the house quiet except for the hum of a distant drill. A contractor had come earlier, his toolbox clanging, promising quick renovations. The sound lingered in my ears, a reminder of progress. I looked at Claire, her head bent over a sketch, and felt a surge of gratitude. She was my ally, my strength. But questions swirled. Could we outsmart Tessa's cunning? I thought of Brian, his silence at dinner, his eyes avoiding mine. Could I save him from her, or was he lost? The lake outside gleamed, its calm surface hiding depths I couldn't read. I stood, the chair scraping softly, and walked to the window. The night was clear, stars pricking the sky like promises. Hank's voice echoed in my mind. "You're tougher than anyone." I'd prove it. Tessa thought me a pawn, but I was a queen, ready to claim my board. The plan was set, each step a shield against her lies. But would it be enough? What would Tessa do when she realized I was fighting back? What do you do when the moment you've been fighting for could break your family apart? I stood outside the lawyer's office, the Oregon sun blazing through the windows, its light sharp against my eyes. The air smelled of polished wood and ink, but my heart pounded like a drum, each beat a mix of fear and defiance. Today, Hank's will would be read, and with it, the truth about Tessa's schemes. Claire stood beside me, her hand brushing mine, her warmth a quiet strength. I'd spent weeks preparing, renovating the farmhouse, securing my health records, building a case to prove I was no frail widow. But now, facing Tessa and Brian, I wondered, would my plan hold? The weight of Hank's trust pressed on me, urging me forward. Inside, the office was a cocoon of leather and bookshelves, the air heavy with anticipation. I sat across from the lawyer, Mr. Grayson, his glasses glinting as he shuffled papers. Tessa and Brian arrived, her heels clicking on the hardwood, her perfume sharp with citrus. She wore a tailored suit, her smile a mask of confidence, but her eyes flicked to me, calculating. Brian slouched beside her, his tie loose, his gaze fixed on the floor. The sight of him twisted my heart, my boy, lost to her control. I smoothed my dress, the fabric soft under my fingers, and steadied my breath. This was my moment. I'd gone over every detail, my nights filled with restless planning. A memory surfaced, unbidden. Months before his death, Hank had pulled me aside in the barn, the haze musty scent thick around us. "I've taken care of you," he'd said, his voice low, his hand gripping mine. "The will, it's ironclad." I'd nodded, not understanding then, but his eyes had held a fierce promise. Now I clung to that promise, my fingers tracing the ring on my hand, its metal warm from my skin. Hank had foreseen Tessa's greed, and he'd armed me with a weapon she couldn't predict. Grayson cleared his throat, his voice cutting through the silence. "Let's begin," he said, adjusting his glasses. My pulse quickened, a rhythm that drowned out the room's soft hum. He read Hank's will, his words precise, detailing the farm, the savings. Tessa leaned forward, her nails tapping the table, her impatience a sharp note. Brian shifted, his hands clenching, and I wondered what he feared. I kept my face still, but inside I was a storm, hope and dread swirling like the lake's depths. Grayson paused, his eyes meeting mine. "There's a special provision," he said, his tone deliberate. The room seemed to hold its breath. "Hank included a clause," Grayson continued, his voice steady. "Marlene has the right to live in the farm for life, protected from any forced removal unless 2 independent doctors confirm she cannot care for herself." Tessa's smile froze, her fingers stilling. I watched her, my heart racing, as Grayson's words landed like blows. "If there's evidence of coercion or mental pressure to displace her," he said, "the farm will be sold and all proceeds donated to the Oregon Animal Welfare Organization. No inheritance will pass to family." Tessa's face drained of color, her eyes wide with shock. "That's absurd," she snapped, her voice sharp as glass. "Hank wouldn't—" She stopped, her hands trembling. Brian stared at her, his mouth open, as if seeing her for the first time. I leaned back, the chair's leather cool against my back, and felt a surge of triumph. Hank's foresight was my shield, his love my sword. Tessa's emails, her whispered plans at the funeral, they were proof of coercion, and Grayson knew it. I'd sent him copies, my hands steady as I'd sealed the envelope, the paper's edge sharp against my thumb. "Marlene has provided evidence," Grayson said, holding up a folder. "Emails planning her removal, sent before Hank's death." The room spun, the sunlight streaming through the windows, a blaze of clarity. Tessa stood, her chair scraping, her voice rising. "This is a mistake," she hissed. "She's manipulating you." But Grayson's gaze was unflinching. "The clause is active," he said. "Any further attempts will trigger the donation." Tessa's plans collapsed, her ambition crumbling like dry earth. I met her eyes, my voice calm but firm. "You thought I was useless," I said. "You were wrong." Brian's head snapped up, his eyes meeting mine. "Marlene," he whispered, his voice breaking. But I held his gaze, my heart a tangle of pain and resolve. I'd raised him, loved him, and he'd betrayed me. Yet, in his eyes, I saw a flicker of regret. Could I reach him? Tessa grabbed his arm, her nails digging in, but he pulled away, his face pale. The room felt electric, the air charged with the weight of truth. Claire squeezed my hand, her grip warm and steady, her pride a quiet fire. I smiled at her, the sunlight catching her hair, and felt Hank's presence, his strength in me. If you're cheering for Marlene's victory, smash that like button. What do you think about this moment of justice? Let us know in the comments. The meeting ended, Grayson's papers rustling as he closed the folder. Tessa stormed out, her heels a furious rhythm, but Brian lingered, his shoulders slumped. I stood, the floor solid beneath me, and walked to the window. The town stretched below, its rooftops glinting in the sun, a world I'd fought to stay in. Relief washed over me, warm as the light on my face, but pride burned brighter. I'd honored Hank, protected our home. The farm was mine, its fields and lake a testament to our love. Yet questions lingered. Brian's hesitation, his whispered Marlene, was there hope for him? I thought of the boy who'd clung to me, his small hands trusting. Could I forgive him? Claire joined me, her arm brushing mine, her lavender scent a comfort. She'd been my rock, my ally, but this victory was only the beginning. Tessa was defeated, but her anger was a storm waiting to break. What would she do next? I turned from the window, my heart steady, my resolve unbroken. I'd won this battle, but the war for my family wasn't over. How do you rebuild a family after betrayal has torn it apart? I stood by the lake on our Oregon farm, the water's surface rippling under a soft breeze, reflecting the fading light of dusk. The air carried the earthy scent of damp soil, grounding me as I traced the path of my fight. Tessa's defeat at the lawyer's office had secured my home, but the victory felt hollow with Brian's silence lingering like a shadow. My fingers brushed the ring on my hand, Hank's ring, its worn metal warm against my skin. I'd protected our legacy, but could I reclaim the family I'd lost? The lake held no answers, its calm a quiet challenge to my restless heart. The farm was alive with spring, the fields vibrant with new growth, but my thoughts drifted to the funeral, to Tessa's cold words in the barn. The memory stung, sharp as the musty hay that had clung to my dress. I'd overheard her plan to strip me of everything, and Brian's failure to speak had cut deeper than her schemes. I'd fought back, proven my strength, but the cost weighed heavy. I thought of Claire, my granddaughter, her fierce loyalty a beacon through the storm. She'd stood by me, her lavender-scented hugs a reminder of what family could be. But Brian, my boy, the one I'd raised, was a wound that hadn't healed. I walked toward the house, my boots sinking into the soft earth, each step a tether to this land. The porch swing creaked in the breeze, its rhythm an echo of nights with Hank, his laughter filling the air. I sat, the wood smooth under my palms, and let my mind wander. I'd been so angry, so focused on Tessa's betrayal, that I'd almost missed Brian's hesitation at the lawyer's office. His whispered, "Marlene?" His eyes flickering with regret. Had I imagined it? I wanted to believe there was still a piece of the boy who'd called me Mom, who'd trusted me with his dreams, but doubt gnawed at me, cold as the evening air. The crunch of gravel broke my thoughts. A car pulled up, its headlights cutting through the twilight. My heart skipped as Brian stepped out alone. His coat hung loose, his shoulders hunched, and the sight of him, so like Hank yet so lost, tightened my throat. He approached slowly, his boots scuffing the path, and stopped at the porch steps. The lake reflected the first stars, a silent witness to this moment. "Marlene," he said, his voice low, almost swallowed by the breeze. "Can we talk?" I nodded, my hands clenching the swing's chains, the metal cool and steady. He sat beside me, the swing swaying gently. The air smelled of pine and possibility, but my chest was tight, braced for more pain. "I'm sorry," he said, his words heavy, like stones dropping into the lake. "I let Tessa control me. I didn't want to see." His voice cracked, and I saw the boy again, the one who'd cried when his pet lamb died, his small hands clutching mine. "You raised me," he said, his eyes meeting mine, wet with tears. "You gave me everything, and I turned my back. I don't know how to fix it." My heart ached, a dull pulse that spread to my fingertips. I remembered the nights I'd stayed up for him, the sacrifices etched into my bones. His betrayal had been a knife, but his regret was a bandage, fragile but real. "You hurt me," I said, my voice steady despite the tears pricking my eyes. "But you're here now. That's a start." The words felt like a release, the weight of my anger lifting, if only a little. Brian nodded, his hands twisting in his lap. "I want to be better," he said. "For you, for Claire." The mention of Claire warmed me, her loyalty a fire that had carried me through. I thought of her at the lawyer's office, her hand in mine, her pride a quiet strength. She was the family I'd chosen, the one who'd chosen me back. But Brian's return, tentative as it was, sparked hope. I looked at the lake, its ripples catching the starlight, and felt a shift inside me. I wasn't just a widow fighting for a farm. I was a woman who'd built a life, who'd loved fiercely and survived betrayal. That strength, Hank's gift, was mine to keep. Claire appeared at the door, her silhouette framed by the kitchen's warm light. She joined us, her sneakers soft on the porch, and suggested planting a tree for Hank. We walked to the field, the soil's rich scent rising as we dug. Claire's laughter mixed with Brian's quiet murmurs, and I felt the farm breathe with us, its heart beating in time with mine. The tree's roots sank deep, a symbol of new beginnings. My hands, dusted with earth, felt strong, capable. I'd faced Tessa's lies, Brian's weakness, and emerged whole. What lesson did you take away from Marlene's journey? Share it in the comments. If this story inspired you, share it with a friend who needs to hear it. I stood, brushing dirt from my hands, and looked at Brian and Claire. The night was clear, the stars bright above the lake. I'd reconciled with my son, not fully, but enough to hope. My journey had taught me my worth, my power to shape my fate. Tessa's defeat was a victory, but this family, flawed but mine, was my triumph. I thought of Hank, his gentle smile, and felt him in the breeze, proud. I was no longer just surviving, I was thriving. But what final lesson would this journey leave me? What do you carry forward when the storm of betrayal has passed, leaving you stronger, but forever changed? I stood on the porch of our Oregon farm, the late afternoon sun bathing the fields in a golden glow, the air rich with the scent of fresh hay and blooming wildflowers. The lake sparkled in the distance, its surface a canvas of light, reflecting the peace I'd fought so hard to claim. My fingers traced the worn wood of the railing, grounding me in this moment, this home. I'd faced Tessa's schemes, Brian's silence, and emerged with my dignity intact. But the journey had carved lessons into my heart, truths I'd carry forever. What were they? And how would they shape my future? The farm was alive, its rhythms a heartbeat I knew by instinct. I walked the path to the lake, my boots soft on the earth, and thought of the night I'd overheard Tessa's betrayal in the barn. The musty air, her cold words, useless, had struck like a blade. I'd been a widow, grieving Hank, yet that moment had woken a fire in me. I'd fought not just for the farm, but for my worth, proving I was no relic to be discarded. The memory lingered, sharp as the hay's prick, but it no longer owned me. I'd transformed it into strength, a shield forged from pain. Claire appeared, her laughter ringing across the field as she carried a tray of lemonade. At 17, she was my anchor, her loyalty a gift that had carried me through. "Grandma," she said, setting the tray on a table, "the community event's ready. Everyone's coming." Her eyes sparkled, and I hugged her, the faint lavender of her hair a comfort. We'd planned a gathering to celebrate the farm, to share its warmth with neighbors. The idea had been hers, a way to root me deeper in this place. I smiled, my heart swelling, but my mind drifted to Brian. His apology by the lake, his tentative steps toward reconciliation, had opened a door. Could it stay open? I sat with Claire, the lemonade's tart sweetness cool on my tongue, and looked at the farm. The fences stood tall, the fields lush, each blade a testament to Hank's love. I'd learned family wasn't blood. It was those who stood by you when the world turned away. Claire was that family, her fierce heart a mirror of mine. Brian, too, was trying, his regret a fragile bridge we were rebuilding. I thought of Tessa, her plans shattered at the lawyer's office, her absence now a quiet victory. But the lesson ran deeper. I was never too old to shape my fate. At 71, I'd rewritten my story, not as a victim, but as a woman who thrived. "Claire," I said, my voice soft, "never let anyone tell you your time's up." She nodded, her hand brushing mine, her warmth a promise. I saw her future, bright and bold, and felt pride so fierce it ached. "You taught me that," she said, her smile bright as the sun. Her words were a gift, sealing the truth I'd earned. I'd faced betrayal, doubt, and fear, but I'd found my power. Hank's ring gleamed on my finger, its metal catching the light, and I felt him in the breeze, proud. The community arrived, their voices a cheerful hum as they filled the field. Tables groaned with food, the air thick with laughter and the smoky tang of barbecue. I moved among them, my dress brushing the grass, my heart full. The farm glowed, its colors vibrant, a living testament to my triumph. I paused by the tree we'd planted for Hank, its leaves whispering in the wind, and felt a deep contentment. This was my place, my legacy, and no one could take it from me. Don't miss more stories like this. Hit that subscribe button now. If this story moved you, share it with someone who'd love it. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. I looked to the future, my mind alive with plans. The farm could grow, new crops, maybe a small animal sanctuary, a nod to my veterinary days. I'd mend things with Brian, step by step, his regret a seed we'd nurture. Claire would soar, and I'd be here, cheering her on. The lake stretched before me, its depths no longer a mystery but a mirror of my resilience. I'd been betrayed, but I'd risen, my life a tapestry of love, loss, and victory.